basically, for those of you who are unaware, I've been kind of watching the Shopify games in preparation for talking about kind of like how I would diagnose their problem and discuss it. However, I believe effectively the Shopify have already made the decision to effectively swap out the jungle Tomio for Boogie. A lot of the reasoning in the clip from their head coach is to say that they think that Boogie's like more veteran presence will give Shopify kind of some agency and something to play around and a way to play. But for me, I think the biggest issue with Shopify is kind of the laners' ability to support the jungler in the current meta, and I think that the Boogie swap doesn't actually fix the problem, but the way that Boogie plays might support their laners and help them get like a couple of superficial wins, but not make the team appreciably better. So we can take a look. Whereas like Tomio, I think will play more in line with how jungle plays, but the lanes won't support him, and you'll have this kind of problem. So this is from the Cloud9 SR series. I'm not going to talk a lot about the games that SR played against Team Liquid or Cloud9, but I'll show you some of the early game problems that they've been having. So in this particular draft, right, you're already in a situation where you have a losing bot. Mid can't be winning or losing. You have like a top that can win. And then you have Maokai. So the bot lane is very susceptible to invade, which is what Cloud9 do in this game. You can watch very quickly. They effectively force Tomio out, and now he's in a position where he basically has to start top or split out top against the Skarner, which is like doesn't do that much against it, whereas like your bot lane is Zeri Alistar, and it's very easy for them to struggle in this laning phase. They also end up starting on this side and not expecting to dive as much, but he does manage to get his camp here, but in theory, right, this could have been like way worse for him. And then, of course, Blabber takes advantage of this and invades topside. So even though it feels like Tomio is getting camps and feels like Tomio is like coming out in a situation where it should be difficult for him, he's actually losing his entire topside. He has a ward here, and he can't do anything about it because this should be his strong side with the Renekton into the Skarner, and he can't invade this side because his bot lane's losing. So you're in this like really weird situation where you're not able to play around the jungle, in part because of how the lanes are set up. So this is like the kind of situation where the jungle has to play like for cheese ganks or has to play for like basically a small like almost Hail Mary plays. Zyra, for those of you who are not aware, is a champion that actually is pretty susceptible to early invades and ganks. This is a situation where actually this bot lane shouldn't be like hard losing for them. But if you watch how the laning phase plays out, SR actually decides to split map here. And go for a bot invade with Ezreal and Nautilus, because Ezreal has pretty strong level 1. So Maokai gets Raptors, and then they invade just red buff while Maokai is choosing these Krugs. I also think this is just like an inefficient game plan. Because if you're only getting red buff for this, it's bad because Udyr has prio on top side, which means that you could very easily lose top camps for this, and all you're getting is red buff, which is, I think, a pretty bad trade. So like the game plan here is just very awkward in terms of like playing efficiently around jungle, in terms of how you want to play this. Like it would be better for him to try to get his top camps and then pat down, where in theory he should have agency, but also if you see how this plays out, as the laning phase goes on, Jan actually ends up being like pretty ahead of B-Boy in this lane phase, which, given the fact that we're basically split mapping bot side here in the early lane phase, like he doesn't punish anything. In fact, they kind of like give up some trade power, and I don't know if this contest of CS is something that should impact B-Boy. I feel like it's really not, but they end up doing poorly in this lane, and we basically have no support here. So it's a big struggle in my opinion, because you also have the IMTSR series, which is, in my opinion, the only series that the Shopify Rebellion have played that should be considered even for them. Basically, we're playing for, like, he finds this narrow window to get these Raptors after he's like clearing relatively even, but it's like a really off timing, right? Because his mid lane is struggling, his bot lane is basing. He doesn't necessarily know for sure that enemy bot lane has based. He knows that Xin should be pathing down, so these raptors shouldn't be guaranteed. And on top of that, right, his strong side is here. They can be setting up for grubs off of his base, or he could be getting his own raptors. So this is like a little bit of an awkward one. He also showed on I think this blue ward doing this, so they don't have vision control playing off of this because he's invading on weak side. So it feels like the game plan is just like really off here, because now IMT, when Rumble should be strong and it should be easy for them to set up here, and they should just get raptors and take control and try to play on when Rumble's strong. They now have information that Tomio's here. Tomio's like kind of Hail Mary invading, and like you can easily take control of this, make a gank on Rumble, force him to use ult early, and then grubs are free. Which is what IMT end up doing. So taking a look at the games from last split, where Boogie played. Boogie also, like, basically my impression of Boogie from when T9, or from when he was on TSM and Shopify was like mostly TSM players. My impression of Boogie was very much that he will give up a lot of camps to make kind of like Hail Mary plays and try to like put a lot of strength into his laners, and his laners weren't necessarily like doing well individually on their own, so he would give up a lot of camps and fall behind a lot in farm to make ganks happen that were like either cheesy or maybe shouldn't work. So you had a situation where Boogie would like sacrifice some of his own potential jungle advantages to go for ganks. And arguably, the strategy is really bad against competent laners, but some laners who are basically single-mindedly focused on 1v1s or 2v2s would fall for this a lot. So TSM would, like, and Boogie was, like, very frustrating for a lot of laners to play against because a lot of his ganks didn't even make sense. So this isn't necessarily a good one because this is warded, so they know he's coming. But here, like, he just goes 4 camps, effectively just straight books it to top side against the Jace, where like one gank here could change the volatility of the game, right? And then of course he's gets marked by River, and this ends up not working out because of the positioning of the ward. But like there were a lot of plays that Boogie does like this, so arguably, like, Tomio's going for weird timings to get camps and not being supported by his laners, and then arguably the flip side is like Boogie is over supporting his laners or looking for ganks that might be low probability to try to force his laners back into the game. So then when you're talking about the advantages that maybe Boogie can provide, is it mid-game related? So you have to look at mid-game, and again, we don't have a lot of footage to go off of like stable mid-games for this split because Shopify Rebellion have literally only played 3 series with Tomio, but we can kind of look at their macro to see how it might be different with different leadership, because a lot of times when you're thinking about leaders, jungles don't do a lot of mid-game. A lot of mid-game calls are done by solo laners, like communicating across each other and talking about where pressure is on the map, but maybe Shopify Rebellion solo laners are just like super clueless and they can't do that coordination, and they're relying heavily on their jungler to help give them that kind of game plan. So when we look at the IMT games for Shopify Rebellion, which in theory this is the series that should be even for them, around 20 minutes in the IMT Shopify Rebellion game, Skarner gets this wave in all the way. Baron is spawning, and Shopify Rebellion decide to drop bot wave to make an overload play on top. They end up really indexing and getting the kill onto Hui, who's like immobile here. Good on Mask to not flash here, right? But then in this situation, if you watch the game as it goes, they don't touch bot wave this entire time. They don't touch top wave this entire time. So actually Corki does get 1 wave, but only 1 wave. when the replay is done. Only one wave, and then Skunner is able to get this for free. Corky's farming Grump. Tactical gets this for free. We don't make another top play, even though we're not showing, and we see Skunner bots. We don't make any play to set up any neutrals. And we don't even contest mid waves. So they're basically contesting 0 waves. They're giving like full control to IMT for free. Mask didn't even blow flash here, so they can't make the same overload play over and over again, and even if they do make the same overload play, they can't get anything out of it because their map state is just really messed up, right? So the question is, like, was that different when they had Boogie, right? So if you watch the NRG series, or watch this NRG game from spring, you see, Insanity actually is pushing out this wave, and again, we have such a small sample size of Shopify Rebellion and Summer being competitive at all, so we have very little to go by, but you actually see like a lot better mid-game control from them. Overall, in the NRG series, a lot more awareness of like where Energy are, and then plays made basically off of bot prio, so it's just Insanity getting this wave first, seeing Aatrox on this, basically showing on this wave, or Nico showing on this wave, and then forcing control off of Nico showing on that wave that they pushed out bots, and looking for a play here, which is like basically, and then this wave is also pushed out, so Energy will have to answer it. So basically you have much better map control when they go for plays like this in some of their spring games. So in theory, like, this could be what they're looking for when they say that Boogie provides like better sense of direction and better sense of control. But again, like, I feel like holding the one series where Shopify Rebellion actually had competitive mid games against Tomio is a little unfair, especially since the early game problems still exist. So how do I think the big crux of the issue comes down to a lot of the early game plans and how they look different. I think Boogie will still be in a situation where he's giving up a lot of farm and falling behind enemy jungle, which will be a lot more detrimental in this season, to basically try to force around his lanes. And if he does that, then you'll have like a much weaker jungle in mid game. And I think saying that Tomio can't do this, which I've actually seen a lot of people have takes saying that Tomio like can't be a carry, but Tomio's best champions historically are like Lilia, Nidalee. So this in theory should be a good meta for Tomio, and Boogie also plays a lot of those champs, so it's not like there's not an overlap, but Boogie is in a position where he's going to play a much more to kind of like salvage lane states, either in bad drafts, like via cheese ganks, or when his laners aren't doing well individually. And I think Tomio's in a position where his lanes are like not able to support an optimal jungle style in the current meta, where jungle XP actually matters quite a bit. So I think that's kind of probably the difference that we'll see. So we'll see like some superficial wins coming off of maybe either more coordinated mid games, or like playing counter to the typical jungle style and more towards what Boogie does. But I don't think it will be something that suddenly makes Shopify Rebellion contend for playoffs. So thank you everyone for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.